Good afternoon, everyone. This is Beth Rickliff. I'm a life insurance sales director here at IAMS. I'm really excited today for our webinar today. We have our underwriter at IAMS, Andrea I'm going to mispronounce your name, Rasser. Is that right, or is it Ray?
It's Rasser.
Rasser, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
But we are fortunate enough to have her on staff with us. She's been in the business for over 27 years. She has done just about everything that you can imagine when it comes to insurance, from sales, case management, underwriting, in the BGA world for over 21 years. And she's honestly just a great blessing to IAMS that we have her, and has made a huge impact in how we help pre-underwrite cases and also how we shop cases. So today we'll have the opportunity to talk about cancer in general and some of the things that you should be looking out when we come across a case, of what's important that we need to know, and how cases get placed when they have cancer diagnosis. I'm going to go over a real quick review of IAMS, and then I'm going to pass it on to Andrea. First of all, we always want to talk with the new agents here that are on the line. We do offer a new producer builder program, which means in the first 180 days, if you're producing with us, whether it's life insurance or annuities, we want to offer incentive for you to get business going with us. So as an example, on the annuity side, if that's $100,000 of premium, that would translate to a 1,500 piece mailing postcard, an iPad, 750 of cash, and then it goes up all the way to the $1 million level. You can see you can cash out at any time, but that's our promotion to get you. The best way for you to understand how IAMS works is if you're submitting business with us, and see how we can push the business through and get you paid faster. We also want to encourage the agents that we are working with to continue to work with us. And I know as a producer myself that the best people that I get to work with are referrals, and that's not any different when we're talking on the life marketing side. If you refer an agent to us that you have high regard to, that is a $50 one-time bonus, but we also will give trail commissions off of that. That's not a haircut off of their commissions at all. That's out of IAMS pocket to thank you for sending them our way. We also have marketing reimbursement, which is a great way to take advantage of all the different lead vendors and marketing programs that we have. So for every 100,000 of index annuity premium, that ends up being $100 of marketing reimbursement, $200 for every single premium amount, and single premium life, I should say, and then $200 for every 10,000 of target life insurance. We want to give you the best back office support that you can imagine. We do that in a lot of ways, all across the board when it comes to IAMS. It can start with the director that you're working with, whether it's the life insurance sales director or the annuity director, and helping you pre-screen a case, talk about product, how to position a case. We have 24/7 access to our website, which is a huge deal. We'll go over that a little bit more. Our case management on both the life and the long life and annuity is second to none. We have the best case management that you could possibly ask for, that are touching cases on a regular basis to make sure that they get through and that we get paid. Never forget that we're in the business of getting paid just like you. So if a case isn't getting paid, it's just as important to us that it moves through the process as quickly as possible as it is to you as well. So speaking about the IAMS website, again, you have 24 access to that. If you haven't signed up for it yet, it's very easy to do. You just go to IAMSinc.com and go ahead and get registered with your email. You're going to see there's a sales resource library that has a ton of information on it. We've got a term quote system on there that actually does term and guaranteed universal life. So if you're wanting some quick numbers, you can always get them there. Like I said, it's 24 access, so it's at your fingertips anytime. If you're missing a form or you're needing to know underwriting guidelines, all of that is going to be accessible on our website as well. We encourage people to, as much as they can, to do applications on an electronic basis. We have it down to 3 different categories. Firelight mainly is going to be your annuity portal. There's a few life insurance ones on there, like National Western Life, Allianz, and F&G, I believe. But for the most part, if we're talking about life insurance, we're going to be talking about iPipeline. Both of those can be found on our IAMS website. And then Sunfire is going to be more of our Medicare platform. Here is just kind of a rundown. You can see all the annuity carriers that use Firelight and our handful of products that are used for life insurance on Firelight. One of the best things about IAMS is that we have a full-service creative marketing team, and they can do just about anything you can think of. Turnkey solutions as far as copywriting, creative professional writing, brochures, business cards, digital website, anything that you can think of. What makes this stand out from everybody else is a lot of times people will go to a marketing firm that have no idea what our industry is like, and our creative marketing team is very versed and was acceptable in life and annuity marketing and what is not. So we're not recreating the wheel here. They're very efficient and provide us very great material when it comes to marketing your business. I would offer to you, if you have not talked to your annuity or life insurance sales director, we do offer a marketing analysis, which is a series of questions that we go through to see what kind of marketing that you're doing now and where you want to see your business go. And then we work with our creative team and see what kind of lead vendors and so forth that we would add in to make sure that we're meeting those goals for you throughout the year. We are full service when it comes to life, long-term care, disability, annuities, but we also want to include that money management side of things, and that's where IAMS Wealth Management comes into play. You could already be an RIA and have a successful business, and maybe you're looking for lower fees and things like that. Or you could be someone that just wants to make sure that's an added part of their business from start to somebody at the very start of their business or somebody that is very well versed. IAMS Wealth Management is willing and able to accommodate that business as well. We are doing, every year we do life and annuity academies. We usually try to hold 3 or 4 of them. Our first one is coming up in May. Those dates have not been set yet. We usually accommodate 30 to 40 agents that come in, and we talk about nuts and bolts of index annuities and annuities. A lot of times it's sponsored by a company. like Allianz, North American, F&G. We haven't officially announced that yet, but that would be something that I would keep your eyes and ears open to if that's something that you want to attend. We would love to discuss that with you as well. And then make sure to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Before I turn it over to Andrea, I am going to ask you a couple polling questions. If you'd answer those for me kindly, I would appreciate it. And then we'll get over to talking about cancer underwriting. There is the first one that has been long. And then the last is, I'll ask that one at the end. Now is if you want more information on the topic that we're going to discuss, but I'm going to hand it over to Andrea. You seriously have one of the best people in the industry to talk about this subject, so I will go ahead and switch the screen over to her. There we go. There, Andrea, did that work for you?
I believe it did. Can everyone see my screen here? Maybe. Are you guys able to see my screen, Beth?
I can see it. Yes, sorry.
Wonderful. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and to Beth for that nice introduction. I certainly appreciate it. Today, we are going to talk about underwriting cancer and what you need to know to get your cases through the system and past underwriting and placed favorably. All right, so first and foremost, let's talk about why we decided on cancer today. So in 2023, there were roughly 2 million people that were diagnosed with cancer just in the United States alone. Breast cancer was the most common diagnosis, with almost 300,000 women and 3,000 men. Second behind that, the leading most common cancer for men alone, obviously, is going to be prostate cancer, but that is also the second most diagnosed cancer in the population. They do expect approximately 288,000 deaths just from prostate cancer. So that is going to be a big topic today. Annual cancer deaths regarding just the US, again, this is not worldwide. Overall, there were over 600,000 in 2023. The deadliest type was not breast cancer or prostate cancer. Surprisingly, it was lung cancer. Though it may not be the most diagnosed, it was the deadliest at 127,000. The second deadliest was colorectal cancer at around 52,000, and then followed up with pancreatic cancer right at 50,000. What's interesting about this is that the lung cancer is actually 3 times higher than the second deadliest. So there's a pretty big spread there in how many deaths we see. Something to note regarding pancreatic cancer is one of the #1 reasons it's so deadly is because it's usually not discovered until it's in the later stages. So that's just something to keep in mind there. All right, so the big question after hearing all those fun numbers is whether or not your client's going to qualify for coverage. And that's kind of a loaded question. Typically, cancer can be insurable. The basic rule of thumb is that underwriters want to see a minimum of 5 years of remission. Now, there are certain cancers where you may be able to get coverage sooner. There are also some cancers, unfortunately, where coverage may never be available. So that's why we're here today, is to kind of decipher the differences in some of those. The waiting period is typically going to be based on what type of cancer was diagnosed, the level of invasiveness, and the chances of reoccurrence. If it's a cancer that is not likely to come back, obviously your chances are going to be a little bit more favorable in obtaining that coverage. So some of the key underwriting concerns, the things that we're really going to look at when we're digging into the nuts and bolts of this, are going to be the pathology report findings, which typically are going to come from the APS. That's not something that your clients are always going to know right offhand. And we really don't expect them to. Like I said, that's something that's usually going to come from the APS. They're going to want to know whether or not this was considered in situ or invasive. And if you've never heard the term in situ, this is basically equivalent to a stage 0. With in situ cancer, it's either a pre-cancer or it's just been caught so early on that it's not nearly as big of a concern as like a stage 3 or stage 4. Disease stage, that's going to be one of the next big things, and we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper here in a couple more slides. And then they're going to look at the lymph node status. They're going to want to know if the cancer has spread outside of the primary tumor and reached any of the lymph nodes. They're also going to want to know how this was treated. Was this something that was resolved with surgery alone? Did it require chemo? Did it require radiation? Did it require all three? That's going to be key. And then they're going to want to know the duration since treatment was completed. And so a lot of times when we ask about that cancer, they're going to want to know both the diagnosis date as well as the date of remission. And then once it's in remission, the underwriters are going to want to look at the adequacy of any kind of surveillance since then. Are they seeing their oncologist on a regular basis? Are they doing all the follow-up testing that they were advised to do? This is going to be key in making sure that that reoccurrence does not happen. So what should you be asking your clients when you're meeting with them for the first time? What you're going to want to find out is the precise name of the cancer. We're going to want to know exactly what type of cancer was diagnosed. Underwriters are going to want to know the stage and the grade. And again, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into what that means, but that is going to be one of the key factors, not only in underwriting, but also in pre-screening. You may notice anytime you call for a tentative offer or to find out if coverage is available, that that stage and grade are going to be required. We really can't move forward without that. Again, the diagnosis date and the remission date, both are going to be key. They're going to want to know if that cancer has metastasized, which means has it spread? Has it spread to any of the nearby lymph nodes or to any distant part of the body? For example, breast cancer has been known to spread to the lungs, among other places, but I'm just going to use that as an example. So if it has, that would be considered metastasis. They want to know how it's treated. Again, that's something we're going to have to know in order to underwrite and to pre-screen. Any evidence of reoccurrence? Has there been any actual reoccurrence? Unfortunately, if a cancer has been found to reoccur, it is more than likely going to be a decline. That is something that, regardless of the cancer type, reoccurrence is definitely a red flag and will likely result in a decline overall and possibly permanently. Again, how often do they follow up with their oncologist? And when was the date of the last follow-up? We don't like to hear that somebody had colorectal cancer but hasn't seen a doctor in the last 5 years because everything's been fine since. That's not going to be a good scenario there. All right, so let's dig into what some of this means medicinally. So when we're staging cancer and we ask about the cancer stage, the staging is basically, it's a way to describe that primary tumor that was the initial cancer, whether or not any lymph nodes have been involved, and whether or not the cancer has spread to any other parts of the body. So what we will commonly see in the pathology report is this TNM staging that is used worldwide. That is not just the United States. That's something that we see all over the world. And basically, the T stands for tumor, and it's going to describe the size of that original cancer tumor or the primary tumor. And the number that they put after the T is going to indicate how large this tumor was. So a small tumor might be designated T1, while a larger tumor may be designated as T4. Obviously, we want to see those smaller numbers. The N is going to describe whether or not the cancer has spread to any of the nearby lymph nodes. This number is also going to use the same protocol. Basically, you want to see a smaller number there. N1 means that the cancer has only spread to a few lymph nodes, and N3 unfortunately is going to mean that it's spread to more lymph nodes. So the lower that number, the better. And then for metastasis, it's either going to be a 0 or a 1. If it's M0, this means the cancer has not spread to any other parts of the body, which is what we want to see. And M1 means that, unfortunately, it has. One thing to note is that this is more of the pathology. This is the part that I don't necessarily expect you to be able to get from your clients. If you can, that's great. But if you can't, it's okay, because typically once the doctors and the oncologist are done with their TNM staging, then they move on to what's called cancer stage grouping. So what your client will more than likely be able to tell you is it was stage 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Stage 0 is going to be that in situ cancer or a carcinoma in situ. This basically means that it has spread to no other parts of the body. It was caught very, very early on. It may even only be considered pre-cancer, and so that is going to be the best possible stage. Stage 1 is going to be known as an early stage cancer. At this stage, the cancer is present, but it hasn't spread to any other parts of the body or any of the nearby lymph nodes. Moving on to stage 2 typically means that the tumors are a little bit larger and that they have spread to nearby tissue, but they've not spread to the lymph nodes. Once we get to stage 3, this typically means it's spread to the lymph nodes. It's now known as locally advanced. It's not spread to other parts of the body, but it has advanced beyond that tumor area. And then stage 4, this is going to be the most detrimental, unfortunately, and is going to be known as advanced cancer or metastatic cancer, meaning that it has spread to other parts of the body. Just having that stage 0 to 4 is enough for us to shop these cases. It is enough for us to get tentative offers from carriers. So again, you don't have to have the TNM staging, but we do have to have that grouping, and whether it's 0 through 4 or where that falls. So let's see, where am I here? One thing to note about cancer staging is that while the TNM pathology is what we most commonly see, there are instances where certain cancers will use a different scoring system. So prostate cancer is the most common, obviously. We saw that in the first couple slides, and it's one that I get quick quotes and informals for all the time. And typically with prostate cancer, you're going to get your stage, but then you're also going to get this Gleason score. That is one of the things we'll also ask for, and it's going to come from the client in the form of a math equation. It'll look exactly like this: 3 + 3 = 6, or 3 + 4 = 7. And that Gleason score, they want to see that as low as possible. Skin cancers use a different staging as well. They use the Clark and Breslow staging system. This just measures how deeply that melanoma has grown into the skin. and which levels of the skin have been affected. Blood cancer uses the RISE staging system, and there are multiple childhood cancers that also use a different staging system. So if your client comes back to you and only has part of the answer for the stage and the grade, then sometimes we just have to dig a little bit deeper into this terminology here. So after we get past the staging, then we get into grading the cancer. The cancer grade is going to describe how the cancer cells look compared to normal cells. These are going to be just graded 1, 2, and 3, typically with most cancers. And the grade 1s are going to be our lowest grade. They're going to be well differentiated. And these are cancer cells that are not quite identical to your normal cells, but they do still look similar, and they usually grow more slowly. Grade 2 is going to be a bit more moderate. This is going to be your intermediate grade. And they look a little bit more abnormal, and they unfortunately are going to grow just a little bit faster than those grade 1s. The grade 3s are going to be high grade. Those are poorly differentiated, and they look very abnormal, and they typically grow faster. So just like the staging system, we want the grade to be as low of a number as possible. Let's see. So we kind of already went over the grouping, so we won't cover that again. This just goes over your stages 0 through 5. And so the reason this matters, the reason that we decided to cover this topic today, is because Munich Re, one of the larger reinsurance companies in the world, they recently performed this deep dive into all their death claims. And they did this based on their fully underwritten block of business. This was not on any of the fast approval type situations. This was fully underwritten. And what they found is that with all their death claims, the most common cause of death was cancer. So regardless of how hard the underwriters may try, to avoid these risks, obviously it's still a major concern in the United States. So in order to mitigate this risk, there's a lot of different things that the carriers are looking at. Obviously, not everybody has a cancer history, so we're not going to underwrite them based on a cancer history. A lot of times we have to underwrite them and, try to predict the future. So some of the ways that we do try to mitigate this risk is by asking those family history questions. We all know that with family history, a lot of cancers are genetic. Not all of them, but when it comes to underwriting, we have multiple carriers who will limit the rate class to standard or standard plus if there's been any family history of cancer in your siblings or your parents. Of special note is that there are some carriers who will take into consideration if it's a gender-specific cancer, that they will overlook a breast cancer history in your mother if you're a male. There are other companies that won't. So when in doubt, always call, always ask, because we can narrow down which carriers are going to dig into that family history and maybe ding you for it or not. One of the other things that underwriters are going to look for is your lifestyle choices. They want to know, are you a heavy drinker? Are you a heavy smoker? Previous drug use? All these kinds of things, we all know that they can increase your cancer risk. And so again, this is why those lifestyle choices make a difference in underwriting. They're going to take a deep look at whether or not you're up to date and consistent with your annual well checks with your doctor. This becomes increasingly important as you age. Obviously, if we've got a 30-year-old who hasn't seen a doctor in 5 years and has no major family history, the underwriters aren't going to scrutinize that nearly as closely as they would a 65-year-old female, for example, who's never had a mammogram. That's kind of a big deal. So they want to see that you're consistently seeing your physician and doing those well visits to make sure that nothing's changed. And this will be looked at even closer if there is a significant family history. For someone with no family history, an underwriter might just not look at it at all. You know, a 40-year-old that hasn't seen the doctor is no big deal. However, if there's a significant family history of, let's say, breast cancer, and this is a female, they may very well postpone for a mammogram. Just again, just another example, but those are key to making sure that we're being proactive with our own health. And then they're also going to look at age-appropriate cancer screenings, which again goes back to those well visits. When it comes to those cancer screenings, some of the big ones that they really, really watch for are going to be breast cancer screening, whether that's mammograms, monthly breast exams, or ultrasounds. They do want to know that that's occurring. Same goes for cervical cancer. You know, if a young lady is not being checked on a regular basis, that's something that could be frowned upon. Colorectal cancer, with that being one of the leading causes of cancer deaths, they are very, very cautious of anyone who's not done their age-appropriate colonoscopies. And, you know, for those that haven't done one, don't want to do one, whatever the case may be, you know, there are other options such as the sigmoidoscopy, or now they have these stool tests, and all of these combined have been shown to really reduce that risk of dying from colorectal cancer. So, you know, if they get somebody who has not ever had one and they're 60 years old and the doctor's been recommending it, you are going to be likely to see a postpone on that. Again, especially if there's a family history there. But even if there's not a family history there, that is one that I see postponed very, very often. The other thing with colorectal cancers and screenings and colonoscopies is, you know, that's also an opportunity for them to locate things such as polyps, which can eventually lead to cancer. And so it's, if you've got a client who's had a previous colonoscopy and there were polyps that were found and removed, they're going to want to see follow-up colonoscopies. And, you know, the client may be expected to do them more often than the general public, but that is one of the ways that they're looking to mitigate that risk, is to make sure that people are on top of those screenings. And then another really common one that most people have at least heard of is going to be your prostate cancer screening, where they will do your PSA levels, which is just part of a blood test. And those often come along with other exams, but they want to see that those are being done in men, especially since it is the leading cancer in men and the second leading cancer overall. Something that we've started to see more often in our insurance labs is one, well, you're going to see the PSA level. That is something that they're always going to run, mostly because they can't guarantee that it's going to be in the doctor's records, you know, especially if a client's not seeing a physician on a regular basis. So that PSA is one that they're always going to run in insurance labs. And then the other is going to be what they call the CEA test. Now, the CEA is not a new test by any means, but it is a little bit newer to insurance labs. I would say in the last 5 years or so, I've seen it a lot more than I ever did before. The CEA, this is a protein. It's in your blood. It's part of the blood work that they do. It doesn't require anything additional from the client. But this is a protein that it's a type of a tumor marker, and this substance that's often made by cancer cells or sometimes by normal cells that are just responding to the presence of cancer, this protein will increase and show up in your blood levels. Some of the cancers that will cause those increases will be colon, prostate, ovary, lung, thyroid, breast, all the big ones. And so that CEA test has become much more common on those insurance labs. And if those levels are elevated, there's a high probability, again, of this being postponed until that can be further evaluated. It doesn't necessarily mean there's cancer there. That's one thing I always like to make sure people know is if you have a client that, their CEA came back high and it gets postponed, do not let them think it's an automatic diagnosis by any means. It's just something that needs to be further evaluated so we can rule out any issues and then hopefully move on to an offer. I think that really covers the basics as far as what we're looking for and what it all means. So some of the ways that IAMS can help with this is we have these fact finders out on our website. They're wonderful. There's some very generic health screening questionnaires that will allow you to find out, when they've seen their doctor, how often, what they've been diagnosed with, what kind of screenings have been done. These are more generalized forms, but we do also have on our website this NAILBA underwriting guide. And in the NAILBA underwriting guide, there are questionnaires for multiple medical histories, whether it's cardiac, cancer, it doesn't matter. There's a little bit of everything. But there are questionnaires that are very cancer specific. There's one just for prostate cancer, one just for breast cancer. And with those, it's really nice because you know exactly what to ask your client. So when you get to those stage and grade details, that prostate cancer questionnaire, for example, is going to ask for exactly what it needs. It's going to ask for that Gleason score. So when we get into cancers that are using a different staging system, those questionnaires really come in handy because you know what exactly they're trying to find out before we can find an offer or shop it out. Beyond that, you can always reach out directly to me. My email is up on the screen right now, and I can pre-screen those. We can talk through the history. We can do a questionnaire. We can, however is going to work best to gather that information, and then I am able to shop those out with multiple carriers. I'd say at least 30 or more, and find out who the best carrier is going to be for any given situation. You can work side by side with your sales directors. Obviously, they can get you those forms as well. If you're not ready to talk to me, if you just want to start with them, they can send that information over to me. That's no big deal, and we will work together on getting those through the underwriting. And again, incorporating health questionnaires on the front end are going to save you an immense amount of time on the back end. There is nothing worse than writing a case and finding out that you picked the wrong carrier, whether it be something like that family history, maybe it's a better offer with another carrier. And those are things that we can screen up front, and that way you go to the right carrier the first time. And I do believe that is all I had for today. Again, follow us and like us on Facebook and LinkedIn. We're always happy to hear from you there. And just want to thank you for joining us. And Beth, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right, I'll close it off with the last polling question, which is if you'd like more information on this topic. All of the sales directors here are familiar with how to get those questionnaires. Of course, they're available for you on the website for you to get to, no problem. But I think that the important thing with us having Andrea, what makes us stand out is that we can shop. And I know she didn't mention it, but some companies underwrite from different manuals too. And a great thing about her is that she knows the different manuals that each company uses. And so in some cases, different companies are better at other things. whether it's cancer, diabetes, whatever the case may be. But if you're not utilizing our pre-screening, you're missing out, because it is a great way to save a case by utilizing our underwriting team. Other than that, Andrea, thank you so much for spending the time with us, and keep a lookout, because I'm sure that we will be going over more topics on underwriting. And that's all I've got for the day.
Thanks, everybody.